Hello, and welcome to another Read With Me session. I'm yours truly, Isabel Bedell, and I'm here to read with you another amazing chapter on Good to Great. This is the book that we are ending the year 2022 with, Good to Great. And it's one of those books that, because you read it, you are now instilled with the truth of how to take your next year, how to take your next month, how to take the next week, day, second, and apply it with intention, with formality, with, the bigger vision. And I know that personally, we've been implementing a lot of what we've learned in these books into our life, into our business, into our relationships, and we've seen a complete transformation within. So when it comes to this channel, if you're brand new to this channel, welcome. First of all, I'm Isabel. I'm one of the founders here at Billionairettes, and I'm so excited for you to be here because every single month we're reading a new book. And for 2022, we actually read 22 books, one on financial freedom, one on personal freedom. And if you haven't checked out the other playlist, we have Vanessa Black reading the personal freedom books. She just finished Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And I'm covering Good to Great by Jim Collins. And we are now on chapter 7. And just like as a mini recap of chapter 6, it was a juicy chapter. And if you don't know what juicy means, it's a thick one. Okay, it's a thick chapter filled with greatness, filled with amazingness. And one of the key highlight points is, you got to build a culture of discipline. A culture of discipline is not just about action. It is about getting disciplined people who engage in disciplined thought and who then take disciplined action. If you can master this, you are way ahead of the game. First of all, just getting the right people on the bus, understanding that you have a bus to fill and you shouldn't be the only one conducting or driving that bus. That's the most important thing. When you start realizing maybe the back of the bus is more comfy and you can watch everybody in their seats and you can, make sure that everybody is have their seatbelt on and everybody is able to look outside of the windows and they can see things and, everything is going smoothly, that's your job, but when you start looking at the different seats on the bus, you start realizing, oh, marketing, sales, operations, systems, technology, automations, all these different factors are in your business, and you want to make sure that everything is flowing correctly. And one of the things are the breakthroughs that I've had throughout this particular book is that fancy fails, simple scales. If you can grasp that and you can apply it, you are golden. Okay, 0 to 6 figures, you got to do something at least 100 times. Get the sale 100 times, confirm it that you can sell a $5,000 product 100 times. Okay, and then once you hit that, then you're like, okay, perfect. Now, how can I add more fuel into this thing so I can blow it up into multiple 7 figures? That's how, the most boringest businesses are the most profitable, most quantifiable businesses that take quantum leaps, because they don't change the process. They don't change the product. Sorry, they change the processes to make it 10%, 3%, 5%, like a half a degree percent more efficient, more speed, more determination. And that is how you go from good to great. When you're able to identify those key little things, make sure that the bolts are on correctly, make sure that everything is lined up perfectly and that everybody understands the vision, the mission, and the intention behind their actions, it's a wrap. This particular chapter is all about technology accelerators. Okay, technology accelerators. And if you know me, you know that I love technology. I'm a huge advocate towards technology. And I really do believe that technology is here for us to mold it into how we want it to go. I don't believe the other way around. And if you get caught up into like, oh, I need this, I need that, or I can't do this because I don't know technology, or, there's so many different stigmas around technology. That is when you get consumed, you get chewed up and thrown back out, and you can't make something happen. You have to take technology by its horns and freaking ride that thing, because you are in control. Technology is not in control. You control technology. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? Okay, technology accelerators. Let's start with this particular chapter. It's most men would rather die than think. Many do. What a quote to start this off, huh? On July 28th, 1999, drugstore.com, one of the first internet pharmacies, sold shares of its stock to the public. Within seconds of the opening bell, the stock multiplied nearly threefold to $65 per share. 4 weeks later, the stock closed as high as $69, a market valuation of over 3.5 billion with a B, billion, 3.5 billion. Not bad for an enterprise that sold products for less than 9 months and had fewer than 500 employees and offered absolutely no hope of investor dividends for years, if not decades, and deliberately planned to lose hundreds of millions of dollars before turning a single dollar of profit. What rationale did people use to justify these rather extraordinary numbers? New technology will change everything, the logic went. The internet is going to completely revolutionize all business, the gurus chanted. It's the great land grab. Be the first, be there last, be there fast, build market share, no matter how expensive, and you win, yelled the entrepreneurs. We entered a remarkable moment in history when the whole idea of trying to build a great company seemed quaint and outdated. Built to flip became the mantra of the day. And just tell people you were doing something, anything connected to the internet, presto, you became rich by flipping shares to the public, even if you had absolutely no profits or even a real company. Why take all the hard steps to go from build up to breakthrough, creating a model that actually works, when you could just yell new technology or new economy and convince people to give you hundreds of millions of dollars? Some entrepreneurs didn't even bother to suggest that they would build a real company at all, much less a great one. One even filed to go public in March 2000 with an enterprise that consisted solely of informational website and a business plan, nothing more. The entrepreneur admitted to the industry standard that it seemed strange to go public before starting a business, but that didn't stop him from trying to persuade investors to buy 1.1 million shares at $7 to $9 per share. And despite having no revenues, no employees, no customers, no company, with the new technology of the internet, who needs all those archaic relics of old economy? Or so the logic went. At the high point of the frenzy, drugstore.com issued its challenge to Walgreens. At first, Walgreens stock suffered from the invasion of the .com, losing over 40% of its price in months leading up to the drugstore public offering. Forbes wrote on October 1999, investors seem to think that the web race will be won by competitors who hit the ground running. Companies like drugstore.com, which trades at 398 times revenue rather than Walgreens trading at 1.4 times revenue. Analysts downgraded Walgreens stock and the pressure on Walgreens to react to the internet that increased as nearly 15 billion in market value evaporated. Wow. Walgreens' response in the midst of this frenzy: we're a crawl, walk, run company. We are a crawl, walk, run company. This described a deliberate, methodical approach to the internet. So instead of reacting like Chicken Little, Walgreens executives did quite the unusual for the times. They decided to pause and reflect. They decided to use their brains. They decided to think. I love that. Slow at first crawl. Walgreens began experimenting with a website while engaging in intense internal dialogue and debate about its implications within the context of its own peculiar hedgehog concept. How will the internet connect to our convenience concept? How can we tie it into our economic denominator of cash flow per customer visit? How can we use the web to enhance what we do better than any other company in the world and in a way that we're passionate about? Throughout Walgreens, executives embrace the stock-still paradox. We have complete faith that we have and we can prevail in an internet world as a great company, yet we must also confront the brutal facts of reality about the internet. One Walgreens executive told us a fun little story about this remarkable moment in history. An internet leader made a statement about Walgreens along the lines of, "Oh, Walgreens, they're too old and stodgy for the internet world. They'll be left behind." The Walgreens people, while irked by this arrogant comment from the internet elite, never seriously considered a public response. And one executive said, "Let's quietly go about doing what we need to do, and it'll become clear soon enough that they just pulled the tail of the wrong dog." Then a little faster, a walk. Walgreens began to find ways to tie the internet directly to a sophisticated inventory and distribution model and ultimately its convenience concept. Fill your prescription online, pop it into your car, and go to your local Walgreens drive-thru in whatever city that you happen to be in at the moment. Zoom past the window with hardly a moment's pause picking up your bottle of whatever, or have it shipped to you if that's more convenient. There were no manic launching about, no hype, no bravado, just calm, deliberate pursuit of understanding, followed by calm, deliberate steps forward. Then finally, run. Walgreens, bet big, launching an internet site as sophisticated and well-designed as most pure.coms. Just before writing this chapter in October 2000, we went online to use walgreens.com. We found it so easy to use and the system of delivery as reliable and well thought out as Amazon.com. Precisely 1 year after the Forbes article, Walgreens had figured out how to harness the internet to accelerate momentum, making it just that more unstoppable. It announced a significant increase in job openings to support its sustained growth. From its low point in 1999 at the depths of the dot-com scare, Walgreens stock price nearly doubled within a year. And what about drugstore.com? Continuing to accumulate massive losses, it announced a layoff to conserve cash. At its high point, little more than a year earlier, drugstore.com traded a price 20 times 6 higher than at the time of the writing. It had lost nearly all of its initial value. While Walgreens went from crawl to walk to run, drugstore.com went from run to walk to crawl. Perhaps drugstore.com will figure out a sustainable model that works and become a great company, but it will not become great because of the snazzy technology hype or irrational stock market. It will only become a great company if it figures out how to apply technology to a coherent concept that reflects understanding of the 3 circles. Here's where we tie it all in: technology and the hedgehog concept. Now you might be thinking, but the internet frenzy is just a speculative bubble that burst. So what? Everybody knew that the bubble was unusual, unsustainable, and that it just couldn't last. What does that teach us about good to great? To be clear, the point of this chapter has little to do with the specifics of the internet bubble per se. Bubbles come and bubbles go. It happens with the railroads, it happened with electricity, it happened with the radio, it happened with the personal computer, it happened with the internet, and it will happen again with unforeseen new technologies. Yet through all of this change, great companies have adapted and endured. Indeed, most of the truly great companies of the last 100 years, from Walmart to Walgreens, from Procter & Gamble to Kimberly-Clark, from Merck to Abbott, trace their roots back through multiple generations of technology change. But it's electricity, the television, or the internet. They've adapted before and emerged great. The best ones will adapt again. Technology-induced change is nothing new. The real question is not what is the role of technology, but rather the question is, how do good to great organizations think differently about technology? We could have predicted that Walgreens would eventually figure out the internet. The company had a history of making huge investments in technology long before other companies in the industry became tech savvy. In the early 1980s, it pioneered massive network systems called intercom. The idea was simple. By linking all Walgreens stores electronically and sending customer data to a central source, it turned every Walgreens outlet in the country into a customer local pharmacy. And you live in Florida, but you're visiting Phoenix and need a prescription refill. No problem. The Phoenix store is linked to the central system, and it's just like going down to your hometown Walgreens store. This might seem mundane, but today's standards. But when Walgreens made the investment in intercom in the late 1970s, no one else in the industry had anything like it. Eventually, Walgreens invested over $400 million in intercom, including $100 million for its own satellite system. Touring the intercom headquarters, dubbed Earth Station Walgreens, is like tapping a trip through a NASA Space Center with its stunning array of sophisticated electronic gadgetry. Walgreens technical staff became skilled at maintaining every piece of technology rather than relying on outside specialists. It didn't stop there. Walgreens pioneered the application of scanners, robotics, computerized inventory control, and advanced warehouse tracking systems. And the internet is just one more step in a continuous pattern. Walgreens didn't adopt all of this advanced technology just for the sake of advanced technology or even in fearful reaction to falling behind. No. It used technology as a tool to accelerate momentum after hitting breakthrough and tied technology directly to its hedgehog concept of convenient drugstores increasing profit per customer visit. As an interesting aside, as technology became increasingly sophisticated in the 1990s, Walgreens CIO, Chief Information Officer, was a registered pharmacist by training, not a technology guru. Walgreens remained resolutely clear. Its hedgehog concept would drive its use of technology, not the other way around. The Walgreens case reflects a general pattern. In every good to great case, we found technological sophistication. However, it was never technology per se, but the pioneering application of carefully selecting technologies. Every good to great company became a pioneer in the application of technology, but the technologies themselves varied greatly. Kroger, for example, was an early pioneer in the application of barcode scanners, which helped it accelerate past the A&P by linking frontline purchases to backroom inventory management. This might not sound very exciting, okay? But think of it this way. Imagine walking back into the warehouse and instead of seeing boxes of cereals and crates of apples, you see stacks and stacks of dollar bills, hundreds of thousands of millions of freshly minted, crisp and crispy dollar bills just sitting there on pallets, piled high to the ceiling. And that's exactly how you think of inventory. Every single case of canned carrots is not just a case of canned carrots, it's cash. And it's cash just sitting there useless until you sell the case of canned carrots. I love that analogy. Now, recall how Kroger systematically shed its dreary old small grocery stores, replacing them with nice, big, shiny superstores. To accomplish this task ultimately required more than $9 billion of investment, which is cash that would somehow have to be pulled out of the low-margin grocery business. And to put this in perspective, Kroger put more than twice its total annual profits into capital expenditures on average every year for 30 years. Even more impressive, despite taking on $5.5 billion of junk bond debt to pay a one-time $40 per share cash dividend plus an $8 junior debenture to fight off corporate raiders in 1998, Kroger continued its cash-intensive ramping throughout the 1980s and 1990s. Kroger modernized and turned over all of its stores, improved the customer shopping experience, radically expanded the variety of products offered, and paid off billions of dollars of debt. Kroger's use of scanning technology to take hundreds of millions of crisp and crinky dollars out of the warehouse and put them to better use became a key element in its ability to pull off its magic trick and pulling not one, not two, but 3 rabbits out of a hat. Wow. That's big. Gillette also became a pioneer in the application of technology, but Gillette's technology accelerators lay largely in manufacturing technology. Think about the technology required to make billions, literally billions, of low-cost, high-tolerance razor blades. When you and I pick up a Gillette razor, we expect the blade to be perfect and we expect it to be inexpensive per shave. So for example, to create a sensor, Gillette invested over $200 million in design and development. Most of it focused on manufacturing breakthroughs and earned 29 patents. It pioneered the application of laser welding on a mass scale to shaving systems, a technology normally used for expensive and sophisticated products like heart pacemakers. The whole key to Gillette's shaving systems lay in the manufacturing technology so unique and proprietary that Gillette protected the way Coca-Cola protects its secret formula, complete with armed guards and security clearances. Wow, that's freaking great. And in this book, in the physical book, or even in the ebook, that if you have it, there's a couple of charts here that you can actually see the technology accelerators from good to great companies for each company, and it breaks it down. That's big. You'll never see a Gillette razor the same again, huh? That's beautiful. That's awesome. Technology as an accelerator, not a creator of momentum. I love that. When Jim Johnson became CEO of Fannie Mae following David Maxwell, he and his leadership team hired a consulting firm to conduct a technology audit. The lead consultant, Bill, used a 4-level ranking, with 4 being cutting edge and 1 being stone. Used a 4-level ranking, with 4 being cutting edge and 1 being stone age. Fannie Mae ranked only 2. So following the principle of first 2, Kelby was hired to move the company ahead. And then when Kelby came into Fannie Mae in 1990, the company lagged about 10 years behind Wall Street in the use of technology. And over the next 5 years, Kelby systematically took Fannie Mae from a 2 to a 3.8 on the 4-point ranking. He and his team created over 300 computer applications, including sophisticated analytical programs to control over $600 billion of mortgage portfolio, online data warehouses covering over 60 million properties, and streamlined workflows, significantly reducing paper and clerical effort. We moved technology out of the back office and harnessed it to transform every part of the business. We created an expert system that lowers the cost of becoming a homeowner. Lenders using our technology reduced the loan approval time from 30 days to 30 minutes and lowered the associated cost by over $1,000 per loan. To date, the system has saved home buyers nearly $4 billion. Notice that the Fannie Mae transition began in 1981 with the arrival of David Maxwell, yet the company lagged behind the application of technology until the early 1990s. Yet technology became of prime importance to Fannie Mae, but after it discovered its hedgehog concept and after it reached breakthrough, technology was a key part of what Fannie Mae leaders called the second wind of the transformation and acted as an accelerating factor. The same pattern holds for Kroger, Gillette, Walgreens, and all of the good to great companies. The pioneering application of technology usually came late in the transition and never at the start. This brings us to the central point of the chapter. When used right, technology becomes an accelerator of momentum, not a creator of it. The good to great companies never began the transition with pioneering technology for the simple reason that you cannot make good use of technology until you know which technologies are relevant and which are those. The only ones that you choose should be the ones that link up directly to the three intersecting circles of the hedgehog concept. Yeah. To make technology productive in a transformation from good to great means asking the following questions. Does this technology fit directly with our hedgehog concept? If yes, then you need to become a pioneer in that application of the technology. And then if no, then ask, do you need this technology at all? If yes, then all you need to do is parody. You don't necessarily need the world's most advanced phone system to be a great company. And if no, then the technology is irrelevant and you can ignore it. We came to see that the pioneering application of technology is one of more ways in which the good to great companies remain disciplined within the frame of the hedgehog concept, and conceptually, their relationship to technology is no different from their relationship to any other category of decisions. Disciplined people who engage in disciplined thoughts and who take disciplined action, if a technology doesn't fit squarely within their three circles, they ignore all of the hype and fear and just go about their business and with a remarkable degree of equanimity. Yeah. Strong. However, once they understand which technologies are relevant, they become fanatical and creative in the application of those technologies. In the comparison companies, by contrast, we found only 3 cases of use that are pioneering in the application of technology. Those 3 cases, Chrysler, for example, the computer-aided design, or Harris, electronics applied to printing, and Rubbermaid, which used advanced manufacturing, were all unsustained comparisons, which demonstrates that technology alone cannot create sustained great results. Chrysler, for instance, made superb use of advanced computer-aided and other design technologies, but failed to link those technologies to consistent hedgehog concepts. As Chrysler strayed outside of the 3 circles in the mid-1980s, the Gulfstream jets, 2 Maserati sports cars, no advanced technology by itself could have saved the company from another massive downturn. Technology without a clear hedgehog concept and without the discipline to stay within the 3 circles, it cannot make a company great. The technology trap. 2 incidents stand out in my mind as I write this chapter. The first is Time Magazine selection of the 1999 of Time Magazine selection in 1999 of Albert Einstein as a person of the 20th century. If you frame the person of the 20th century selection around this question, how different would the world be today if that person had not existed? The choice of Einstein is surprising. Compared to leaders like Churchill, Hitler, Stalin, and Gandhi, people who truly changed the course of humanity, of human history, for better and or for worse. Physicists point out that the scientific community would have reached an understanding of relativity with or without Einstein, and perhaps 5 years later, certainly 10, but not 50. The Nazis never got the bomb, and the Allies and would have won the Second World War without it. Although it would have cost more Allied lives, why did Time pick Einstein? In explaining their selection, Time editors wrote, "It's hard to compare the influence of statesmen with that of scientists. Nonetheless, we can note that there are certain eras that were most defined by their politics, others by their culture, and others by their scientific advances. So how will the 20th century be remembered? Yes, for democracy, and yes, for civil rights, but the 20th century will be most remembered by its earth-shattering advances in science and technology, which advanced the cause of freedom in some ways more than any statesman did. In a century that will be remembered for its science and its technology, one person stands out as the paramount icon of our age, Albert Einstein." In essence, the Time editors didn't pick the person of the century much as they picked the theme of the century, technology and science, and attached the most famous person to it. Interestingly, just a few days before the Einstein announcement, Time announced its person of the year for 1999. Who did it pick? None other than the poster child of e-commerce, Jeff Bezos of Amazon.com, reflecting yet again our cultural obsession with technology-driven change. And let me be clear, I neither agree or disagree with Time's choices. I simply find them interesting and illuminating because they give us a window into modern psyche. Clearly, a key item in our collective mind is technology and its implications, which brings me to the second incident. Taking a short break from the rigors of writing this book, I traveled to Minnesota to teach sessions at the Masters Forum. The Masters Forum has held executive seminars for nearly 15 years, and I was curious to know which themes appeared repeatedly over the years. One of the consistent themes, said Jim Erickson and Patty Griffin Jensen, program directors, is technology, change, and the connection between the two. Is technology change and the connection between the two? Why do you suppose that is? I asked. People don't know what they don't know, they said. And they're always afraid that some new technology is going to sneak up on them from behind and knock them on their head. They don't understand technology, and many fear it. And all they know for sure is that technology is an important force of change and that they'd better pay attention to it. Given our culture's obsession with technology and given the pioneering application of technology in the good to great companies, you might expect that technology would absorb a significant portion of the discussion in our interviews with good to great executives. We were quite surprised to find that fully 80% of the good to great executives we interviewed didn't even mention technology as one of the top 5 factors in the transition. Furthermore, in the cases where they did mention technology, it had a median ranking of 4th, with only 2 executives of 84 interviewed ranking it number 1. And who knows, they probably didn't even, those 2, I don't know. They probably didn't make a big splash. If technology is so vitally important, why did the good to great executives talk about it so little? Certainly not because they ignored technology. They were technologically sophisticated and vastly superior to their comparisons. Furthermore, a number of the good to great companies received extensive data and media coverage and awards for their pioneering use of technology, yet the executives hardly talked about technology. It's as if the media articles and the executives are discussing 2 totally different sets of companies. Nuker, for example, became widely known as one of the most aggressive pioneers in the application of the mini-mill steel manufacturing. And with dozens of articles and 2 books that celebrated its bold investments in continuous thin slab castings and electric arc furnaces, Nuker became a cornerstone case at business schools as an example of unseating the old order through the advanced application of new technologies. But when we asked Ken Iverson, CEO of Nuker, during his transition to name the top 5 factors in the shift from good to great, where on the list do you think he put technology? First? No. Second? Nah. Third? No. Fourth? No, not even. Fifth? Nope. The primary factors were the consistency of the company. The primary factors were the consistency of the company and our ability to project its philosophies throughout the whole organization, enabled by our lack of layers of bureaucracy. Stop and think about that for a moment. Here we have a consummate case study of upending the old order with the new technology, and the CEO who made it happen doesn't even list technology in the top 5 factors in the shift from good to great. This same pattern continues throughout the Nuker interviews. Of the 7 key executives and board members that we interviewed, only 1 picked technology as the number one factor in the shift, and most focused on the other factors. A few executives did talk about Nuker's big bets on technology somewhere in the interview, but they emphasized the other factors even more. Getting people with a farmer work ethic on the bus, the right people in the key management positions, the simple structure and the lack of bureaucracy, the relentless performance culture that increases profit per ton of finished steel. And technology was part of the Nuker equation, but it was secondary. One Nuker executive summed up 20% of our success is the new technology that we embrace, but 80% of the success is in the culture of the company. Indeed, you could have given the exact same technology as the same exact time to any number of companies with the exact same resources as Nuker, but even still, they would have failed to deliver Nuker's results. And like the Daytona 500, the primary variable in the winning is not the car, but the driver and his team. Not that the car is important, but it is secondary. Mediocrity results first and foremost from management failure. Yeah. Not technological failure. Bethlehem Steel, its difficulties had less to do with the mini mill technology and more to do with its history of adversarial labor relationships, which ultimately had its roots in unenlightened and ineffective management. Bethlehem had already begun its long slide before Nuker and the other mini mills had taken significant market share. In fact, by the time Nuker made its technological breakthrough with continuous thin slabs casting in 1986, Bethlehem had already lost more than 80% of its value relative to the market. And this is not to say that technology played no role in Bethlehem's demise. Technology did play a role, and ultimately a significant one. But technology's role was an accelerator of Bethlehem's demise, not the cause of it. And again, it's the same principle at work. Technology as an accelerator, not a cause. Not in this comparison case, it is operating in reverse. Wow. Indeed, when we examined the comparison companies, we did not find a single example of a comparisons company's demise coming primarily from the technology torpedo that blew it up out of the water. R.J. Reynolds lost his position as the #1 tobacco company in the world, not because of technology, but because RJR management thrashed about the undisciplined diversification and later went on a let's make management rich at the expense of the company buyout binge. A&P fell from the second largest company in America to irrelevance, not because it lagged behind Kroger in scanning technology, but because it lacked the discipline to confront the brutal facts of reality about the changing nature of grocery stores. And the evidence from our study does not support the idea that technological change plays a principal role in the decline of a great company. Certainly technology is important and you can't remain a laggard and hope to be great, but technology by itself is never a primary cause of either greatness or decline. We're finishing off here. This is so important because I feel like a lot of people they think technology is not important, or they think technology, it's like two extremes, you know? They take it as like, I must have the latest thing, or I wish I had the latest what is gadgets, or the latest computer, a faster phone, or a bigger camera, all this stuff, and thinking that that's going to be what makes them great. But in a way, that's not even it. In a way, like that's kind of like what's kind of in between of them actually getting to the next step, which is taking action, taking immediate control of the situation and looking at the brutal facts of reality and taking initiative to just going towards the overall mission here, right? Management. This line hit me hard. Mediocrity results first and foremost from management failure. That's why as leaders, we got to step up. We got to step up and we got to instill our mindsets, with the right information, the right context, the right, mentorship, the right community, the right information. Let's get into this. Throughout business history, early technology pioneers rarely prevail in the end. VisiCalc, for example, was the first major personal computer spreadsheet. Where is VisiCalc today? Do you know anyone who uses it? And what of the companies that pioneered it? Well, they're gone. It doesn't exist. VisiCalc eventually lost out to Lotus 123, which itself lost out to Excel. Lotus went into a tailspin, saved by only selling out to IBM. Similarly, the first portable computers came from now dead companies, such as Osborne Computers, and today we primarily use portables from companies such as Dell and Sony. This pattern of the second, third, or even fourth follower prevailing over the early trailblazers shows up through the entire history of technological and economic change. IBM did not have the early lead in computers. It lagged so far behind Remington Rand, which had the UNIVAC, the first commercially successful large-scale computer, that people called this first computer IBM's UNIVAC. Boeing did not pioneer the commercial jet. De Havilland did with the Comet, but lost ground when one of its early jets exploded in midair, not exactly a brand-building moment. Boeing, slower to market, invested in making the safest, most reliable jets and dominated the airways for over 3 decades. I could go on for pages. GE did not pioneer the AC electrical system. Westinghouse did. Palm Computing did not pioneer the personal digital assistant. Apple did, with its high-profile Newton. AOL did not pioneer the consumer internet community. CompuServe and Prodigy did. We could make a long list of companies that were technology leaders, but that failed to prevail in the end as great companies. It would be a fascinating list in itself, but all the examples would underscore a basic truth. Technology cannot turn a good enterprise into a great one, nor by itself prevent disaster. History teaches this lesson repeatedly. Consider the United States debate in Vietnam, or debacle in Vietnam. The United States had the most technologically advanced fighting force the world has ever known. Superjet fighters, helicopter gunships, advanced weapons, computers, sophisticated communications, miles of high-tech border sensors. Indeed, the reliance of technology created a false sense of invulnerability. But the Americans lacked not technology, but a simple and coherent concept of the war on which to attach that technology. It lurched back and forth across a variety of ineffective strategies, never getting the upper hand. And meanwhile, the technologically inferior North Vietnam forces adhered to a simple, coherent concept, a guerrilla war attrition aimed at methodically wearing down public support for the war at home. What little technology did the North Vietnamese did employ, such as the AK-47 rifle, much more reliable and easier to maintain in the field than the complicated M16, linked directly to the simple concept. And in the end, as you know, the United States, despite all of its technological sophistication, did not succeed in Vietnam. If you ever find yourself thinking that technology alone holds the key to success, then think again. Think of Vietnam. Indeed, thoughtless reliance on technology is a liability, not an asset. Yes, when used right, when linked to a simple, clear, and coherent concept rooted in deep understanding, technology is an essential driver in accelerating forward momentum. But when used wrong, when grasped as an easy solution without deep understanding of how it links to a clear and coherent concept, technology simply accelerates your own self-created demise. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to point out that when we invested, we invested like, I think it was 50 to over 60 grand on hiring an expert to come into our business to systemize our stuff. Clearly, this person was from the outside, and then we invited them over to come in. And we thought we made a great investment, thinking that, this person, because they understand systems, they will understand our company. And what we should have done, now looking back on it, is definitely not hired someone from the outside, but actually invested into someone in the inside of our company and allowed them to take the time to just go through every single department, every single spreadsheet, every single tracking measurement, and then look at it as a holistic view, and then create systems around each process, each system, each understanding. That was never done when we hired an outside person. Because of that intense debacle, okay, it was like freaking 60 over, I'm gonna say about $66,000 lost with that fool, okay? Because that happened, I took it as a slap to the face, because I'm typically the one in charge of technology. I'm typically the one in charge of what's going on. And I let go of I allowed someone to be the driver's seat, to take control of the driver's seat. And that's not what you do. Okay. Because I went through that, because I allowed someone to get into the driver's seat, because I allowed someone to, call themselves an expert and put themselves into my business and act like the expert, I now take full responsibility of anybody that I coach, that I mentor, that I do audits for and create edits. I never actually do any audit or edit without the other person's understanding that I'm not even going to be in the driver's seat. They are the ones in the driver's seat. I never allow myself to be in the driver's seat, because had I not done that with that person, maybe I would have invested half of that into an internal team member, and then we create something unique and special for our business, and we would have still kept that trajectory going. But it literally went like this, a big tick, invest, and then it started crumbling down because our overhead got so high, and it was just so stupid. So I am so on, like, I feel this so much, and I guess you have to go through something where like you get like kind of chopped at the knees for something that it does affect you. So like you have an emotional connection to it. But anyways, let's finish this chapter off so we can, go on to the next one. Technology and the fear of being left behind. The research team ferociously debated whether this topic merited its own chapter. There must be a technology chapter, said Scott Jones. We're bombarded by the importance of technology these days at the business school, and if we don't address it, we'll have a huge hole in the book. But it seems to me, countered Brian, that our technology finding is just a special case of disciplined action, and it belongs in the previous chapter. Disciplined action means staying within the 3 circles. Yes. I wasn't clear on the 3 circles, by the way, before. And that's the essence of our technology finding. Yes, true, but it does have a very special case, pointed out Scott. Every one of the companies became extreme pioneers in the application of technology long before the rest of the world became technology obsessed. But compared to the other findings like level 5, the hedgehog concept, and the first WHO, technology feels a much smaller issue. I agree with Brian, technology is important, but as a subset of discipline, or perhaps the flywheel. We argued throughout the summer. Then Chris Jones, in her typically quiet and thoughtful way, asked a key question. Why did the good to great companies maintain such a balanced perspective on technology when most companies became reactionary, lurching, and running about like Chicken Little, as we're seeing with the internet? Why, indeed? Chris's question led us to an essential difference between great companies and good companies, and the difference that ultimately tipped the balance in favor of including this chapter. If you had the opportunity to sit down and read all of 2,000 plus pages of transcripts from the Good to Great interviews, you'd be struck by the utter absence of talk about competitive strategy. Yet they did talk about strategy, and they did talk about performance, and they did talk about becoming the best, and they even talked about winning. But they never talked in reactionary terms and never defined their strategies principally in the response to what others were doing. They talked in terms of what they were trying to create and how they were trying to improve relative to an absolute standard of excellence. When we asked George Harvey to describe his motion for bringing change to Pitney Bowes in 1980, he said, "I've always wanted to see Pitney Bowes as a great company, and let's start with all of that, all right? Let's just start there." That's a given that needs no justification or explanation. We're not there today. We won't be there tomorrow. And there's always so much more to create for greatness in an ever-changing world. Or as Wayne Sanders summed up in the ethos that came to typify the inner workings of Kimberly Clark, we're just never satisfied. We can be delighted, but never, never satisfied. I like that. We can be delighted, but never satisfied. I love that. Those who built the good to great companies weren't motivated by fear. They were driven by fear of what they didn't understand. They weren't driven by fear of looking like a chump. They weren't driven by fear of watching others hit it big while they didn't. They weren't driven by the fear of being hammered by the competition. No, those who turn good into great are motivated by a deep creative urge of an inner compulsion of sheer, unadulterated excellence for its own damn freaking sake. Those who build and perpetuate mediocrity, in contrast, are motivated by the fear of being left behind. That's a freaking bold statement. Never was there a better example of this difference than during the technology bubble of the 1990s, which happened to take place right smack in the middle of research on good to great. It served as an almost perfect stage to watch the difference between great and good play out on itself. And as the great ones responded like Walgreens, the calm equanimity and quite deliberate steps forward, while the mediocre ones lurched about in fearful, frantic reaction. And indeed, the big point of this chapter is not about technology per se. No, technology, no matter how amazing, not computers, not telecommunication, no robotics, not the internet, it can be by itself and ignite a shift from good to great. No, technology can actually make you level 5. No technology can make you level 5. No technology can actually turn the wrong people into right people, nor can it instill unwavering faith. No technology can supplant the need for deep understanding of the 3 circles and the translation of the understanding into a simple hedgehog concept. No technology can create a culture of discipline. No technology can instill the simple inner belief that leaving unrealized potential on the table, letting something remain good when it can become great, is a secular sin. Those that stay true to these fundamentals and maintain their balance even in times of great change and disruption will accumulate the momentum that creates breakthrough momentum. Those that do not, those that fall into reactionary lurching about will spiral down or remain mediocre. This is a big picture difference between the good to great and the gestalt of the whole study captured in the metaphor of the flywheel versus the doom loop. And it is that overarching contrast that we now turn. It's a mouthful towards the end here, but I mean, I hope you understood what they were talking about. because it's true. Like, I mean, we're almost ending this book. There's 9 chapters. We're entering chapter 8, and it's a fairly small chapter, which, oh, never mind. It's not a small chapter, but it's one of those chapters that we're going to be able to just scoop up pretty quickly. What I'm saying here is that when we do have the opportunity to use technology and we have the opportunity to just take things to the next level, we have to be very conscious that it doesn't, like, if we just look at technology as our savior, then we're just limiting our human design to win. Okay? As simple as that. I'm going to leave it at that because this chapter has helped me see so many different things, and I'm proud of, that mistake led me to become a lot more rigorous into how I approach technology, how I share my message on technology, and how I'm able to confidently come to the table and train my team, train anybody that I work with, and help people become better versions of themselves and not be so dependent on technology. So, I mean, this is such a great chapter. I'm glad they included it in the book, and I wish you the very best. And if you are in a position where you're taking in technology and you're learning about technology and you feel left behind, comment. Let us know. Let us know how you feel about that. We would love to know more, and we would love to see how, a conversation can lead you to better understanding how amazing you truly are, because if you feel left behind, then there's something stopping you from achieving your greatness. And that's something that a simple conversation can solve. I'll talk to you soon. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next Read With Me session where we cover chapter 8. See ya.